Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be tackling tariffs.
Ooh, tariffs.
And I have to say, looking at this stack of sources, we've got academic journals, we've got Wikipedia, we even have a children's encyclopedia entry.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, who knew getting tariff literate would involve such a diverse reading list?
Well, it speaks to, I think, how deeply ingrained tariffs are.
Yeah.
In all aspects of our world,
Yeah.
Like from the cost of a chocolate bar to sort of like these big global power plays.
Exactly. So before we get into all of the really complex stuff, let's just level set.
Yeah, let's do it.
For everyone listening,
okay,
what is a tariff in the simplest possible terms?
Well, a tariff is essentially a tax.
Okay.
That is slapped onto goods coming from another country.
Okay.
So imagine it like as a border crossing fee that makes those imported items pricier.
Okay, so that example we have of the Dutch cocoa tariff. Yes.
That could really hit chocolate lovers hard.
Absolutely.
Suddenly their favorite treats are more expensive. But then also,
Yeah.
not to mention what happens to businesses, like, wouldn't Dutch chocolate makers become less competitive?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, tariffs have these ripple effects,
Yeah.
So domestic producers, like those Dutch cocoa growers that you mentioned, they might initially see a benefit, right?
Right.
Because there's reduced competition.
Less competition.
But without that pressure from global rivals, there's less incentive to innovate, to stay sharp.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that saying, like a smooth sea never made a skilled sailor.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. A little bit of competition.
Keeps everyone on their toes.
Keeps everyone on their toes. Exactly.
But before we get into kind of all the complexities, let's back up a little.
Okay.
Are all tariffs created equal?
That's a great question.
Or are there?
And the answer is no. We have two main flavors of tariffs.
Okay.
We have something called ad valorem, which is a percentage-based tariff.
Okay.
So think of it almost like a sales tax.
Okay.
But only for imports.
Got it.
And then we have specific tariffs,
Okay.
which are a fixed fee per unit of the good.
Okay. I'm with you.
So think of it this way. A 20% tariff on imported cars, that would be ad valorem.
Okay.
While, say, a $300 tariff on each ton of steel,
Right.
that would be specific.
That makes sense. That distinction is interesting.
Uh-huh.
I'm curious, looking at the historical examples in our sources, when did each type become more prevalent?
Ooh, that's...
were specific tariffs more common historically?
That is a great question.
And then as trade became more complex, did we move towards that ad valorem?
It really gets to the heart of, why governments use tariffs in the first place.
Okay.
And our sources point to these 3 R's.
Oh.
Yeah. Of tariffs.
I like it, the 3 R's.
Revenue restriction.
Yeah.
And reciprocity.
Catchy. All right,
Yeah.
So historically, tariffs were a major moneymaker for governments.
Yeah, big time.
Especially in the early U.S. before income tax.
Right, they didn't have income tax.
That was a big chunk of...
Huge source of revenue for governments.
They got their money.
Yeah.
Okay, but what about restriction?
Yes.
Is that where protecting kind of local industries comes in?
Exactly.
Okay.
So if you make foreign goods more expensive through tariffs,
right,
you're essentially giving your domestic producers a leg up.
Okay.
And that's the protectionist argument, right?
Right.
It's all about shielding industries from being undercut.
From cheaper imports.
By cheaper imports, exactly.
Okay. Now, you mentioned infant industries needing protection, right?
Yeah.
But some people would argue that creates a culture of dependency. What do our sources say about striking that right balance?
Yeah.
Is there a point where protection becomes a crutch?
It's tricky.
And actually hinders innovation and long-term competitiveness?
There's definitely a risk of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a real tightrope walk for policymakers.
Right.
Too much protection.
Right.
And domestic industries can become complacent, too little, and they might get swamped before they can really establish themselves.
Yeah.
And, the historical examples you provided actually highlight this dilemma really well.
Yeah.
Especially when we look at...
the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930?
Yes.
That seems like the poster child
Big way.
for how tariffs can just completely backfire.
Yeah.
Spectacularly. raising tariffs during the Great Depression,
Yeah.
from what I understand, just made things worse.
Yeah.
It sparked retaliatory tariffs from other countries.
It did.
And just deepened the global economic slump.
And just deepened it. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, Scoot-Hawley it's a stark reminder how protectionism can have these unintended consequences.
Right.
And sometimes even the opposite of what was intended.
Yeah.
And it's a cautionary tale that still resonates today.
Yeah.
As we see some countries
embracing those protectionist policies again.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, are we setting ourselves up for a repeat of history?
Well, it's a concern that many economists share.
Yeah.
And it brings us back to that third R of tariffs that we talked about.
Okay.
Reciprocity.
Reciprocity.
See, tariffs aren't just these economic tools.
Right.
They're also bargaining chips in international relations.
Oh, so this is where things get really interesting.
Nice.
Like, countries are using these tariffs as leverage in these trade deals.
Leverage.
It's like a game of economic chess.
It is.
You know?
Absolutely.
Trying to, like, force other countries' hands.
Precisely. And as we've seen, this strategy can very easily spiral into a trade war.
Right.
With each country raising tariffs in retaliation.
Right.
And that ultimately hurts everyone involved.
Right. It's like Smoot-Hawley.
Yeah, exactly.
But on a global scale.
Smoot-Hawley on a global scale. Yeah.
Okay, well, this makes Switzerland's decision to completely abolish tariffs on industrial products in 2024 all the more intriguing.
Yeah, interesting.
Talk about going against the grain.
It is.
Are they kind of like a glimpse into a future where free trade reigns supreme?
It's tempting to see them as a trendsetter, you know?
Yeah.
But remember, they occupy a very unique niche, neutral country, economically stable.
Right.
They specialize in these high-value goods and services. They're not as reliant on those heavy industries that might be more vulnerable.
In a tariff-free world.
In a tariff-free world, exactly.
Right. So their approach might not be easily replicated.
Might be tough.
Yeah. For other countries, with different economic structures, different geopolitical realities. It seems like we're stuck in this tug of war between, those pushing for free trade and those advocating for these protectionist measures.
Yep.
Are there any signs of this balancing act actually working?
Well, there are some positive developments.
Okay.
International agreements, organizations like the WTO.
The World Trade Organization.
Exactly.
Okay.
They act as kind of like referees in this global trade game.
Okay.
They provide a framework for dialogue, for negotiation, for dispute resolution.
Okay.
Preventing things from escalating too quickly.
So it's not, despite this recent rise in protectionist rhetoric, it's not a complete descent into every country for itself.
Definitely not.
Okay.
In fact, many countries are moving towards these next generation trade deals that go beyond just simple tariff reductions.
Okay, so what does that look like?
Well, these agreements often address things like intellectual property rights, environmental standards, labor regulations.
So it's not just about the price tag anymore.
It's bigger.
It's about
the bigger picture.
Establishing kind of like a more level playing field?
Yes.
On a wider range of issues.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, does that benefit developing countries as well?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Ensuring fair and sustainable trade practices can be really crucial for those developing economies.
Okay.
However, even in these agreements, we still see the use of tariffs.
Okay.
Particularly when it comes to
protecting those so-called infant industries.
Exactly. That idea of giving those emerging sectors some breathing room
to grow
before they're exposed to full-blown global competition.
To mature.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
It's a delicate balance, though.
Yeah.
Because too much protection can actually be detrimental in the long run.
Right.
So that's why clear timelines and exit strategies are crucial.
Yeah.
To prevent those domestic industries from becoming overly reliant on tariffs.
Right. So those infant industries might never fully mature.
Might never grow up.
And compete on that global scale.
Exactly.
Okay, but shifting gears a bit.
Okay.
What about the impact on us everyday consumers?
Right.
We talked about tariffs as these hidden taxes
Yes.
lurking in the price of like everything we buy.
And it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It really is.
And it becomes especially relevant when we consider how interconnected the global economy is.
Absolutely.
Right. I mean, it raises some tough questions about our own consumption habits.
It does.
Are we willing to pay a bit more for certain goods if it means supporting, domestic industries and jobs?
Yeah.
Or do we prioritize those potential savings
Right.
and variety
Right.
that come with free trade, even if it means some industries struggle?
These are tough questions with no easy answers.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I think, we need to be informed citizens who understand the trade-offs involved.
Yeah.
Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive.
I'm thinking about, my own shopping list.
Right.
Do I really understand how tariffs are factored into the prices of the things I buy every day?
It's wild.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling. But you mentioned some additional resources for those of us
absolutely
who want to really learn more about this complex world of tariffs.
Well, for those who really want to geek out on the economic theories behind tariffs, I would recommend diving into the work of economists like Paul Krugman, Douglas Irwin. They've written extensively on trade policy.
Yeah.
And they really offer a more in-depth understanding of the economic models and trade-offs at play.
What about for the history buffs out there?
Oh, yeah.
Are there good books and documentaries on
there are so many.
The history of tariffs?
Yeah, there are some fantastic books and documentaries on the history of tariffs in the United States and around the world.
Okay.
It's fascinating to see how tariffs have been so intertwined with the history of globalization, industrialization, even international relations.
Yeah.
It really gives you a whole new perspective on these historical turning points.
And for staying up to date on current trade disputes and
publications like The Economist,
the
Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, they offer some really insightful analysis and opinion pieces.
Forget the power of podcasts and interviews.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hearing experts from different fields discuss this can really help kind of develop
a
more well-rounded understanding of these complex issues.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and never underestimate the value of respectful dialogue with people who hold different views on tariffs.
Right.
Sometimes the most enlightening conversations come from challenging our own assumptions.
Yeah.
And listening to those who see the world differently.
It's so easy to get stuck in our own echo chambers.
Very easy.
Especially in today's world.
Yeah.
But hearing those opposing viewpoints, as uncomfortable as it might be sometimes, can help sharpen our own thinking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of tariffs, I want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay, lay it on me.
The landscape of global trade is constantly evolving, shaped by economic trends, political decisions, even technological advancement.
So what does this mean for us as individuals navigating this ever-changing world?
It means that staying informed, being critical thinkers, and engaging in constructive dialogue are more important than ever.
Yeah, it's easy to get overwhelmed, but knowledge is power.
Yeah, knowledge is power, especially when it comes to something like trade policy that has such a direct impact
on our lives.
On our lives.
You said it. So as you continue to explore this topic, everyone, remember to ask those questions, challenge assumptions.
Challenge everything.
Seek out those diverse perspectives.
Yes.
And most importantly, stay curious.
Stay curious about this interconnected world that we live in.
That's a fantastic note to end on.
I think so.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
On this deep dive into the world of tariffs.
It was a pleasure.
Until next time.
Yes.
Keep those knowledge-seeking gears turning.